Alright, I'm back after a long time away with a Super Quantum deck profile and a short tournament report. I went to the North America WCQ Genesis event to play Super Quantums again after a long time away from the game. I think the deck is very strong right now. I went 4-4 at the event with barely knowing the format or how to play against any of the decks. I played against a bunch of decks for the first time ever at the tournament and had to. I was the guy there reading everybody's cards as they play them because I had never seen them before. But the deck's really good, and I think if you actually know how to play the format, then I think it will do well. I know how to play the deck itself pretty well. It's just knowing how to stop the other decks, I guess, and knowing the choke points and everything. That's something I'm a little weak on, but I'll show you. Here's the deck I played. So some of that's obvious: 3 Alphan, 3 Zayton, 3 black, 3 white. These are like your strongest ones. It's obvious. These are your 2 like 1 card starters essentially. Alphan by itself is Megazord. Zayton, you need to send the spike and also to get you to Alphan if you don't have Alphan, or just to continue your combo. White searches for Alphan and it's a fairy, and then black searches for the spell in the grave. And also its on-field effect is great for just summoning stuff easily. The Exceeds. And then the classics, we've got 2 red, 1 green, and 3 blue. Blue's still good, but not as good as it used to be. A lot of times you don't even need the search to do your combo, but you just do it anyways because it's just a free card. Green definitely comes up. You need the 1 copy. You will send it for white sometimes to copy the level, and then discard a card from your hand. If you draw the spike, you'll want to discard it to draw a card. Just drawing another card also is nice a lot of the time because you can try to just draw into a hand trap or something that's good like that. And there are also hands where you do want to summon it. If you just have a bunch of cards in hand that you want to summon. So the 1 definitely comes up. And then 2 red, because red and green are ones you do not want to draw at the start. They're not starters. But the 2 red comes up where a lot of times you will want to use 2 red in the same combo line where you'll send 1 to the grave and then summon the other one to get both of their effects. And then other monsters, we're running 3 Gem Knight Napirum. So in my testing, this worked very well, but in the tournament itself, it ended up being kind of bricky. It does have the potentials to lead to brick hands sometimes. I kept drawing this and Dispersion during the tournament, which really sucked. And then I would just discard them to activate my other card effects instead of even summoning it or using the fusion. It just wasn't worth it. But sometimes it was good even in the tournament, and in testing it was very good. The idea is you can use this to fuse. You can use an Eva to fuse with this, and then the Eva engraved will search you for an Alphan to start if you don't have a starter, or if you do already have a starter, it'll search for an orange to get an interruption. And then if you can also use it to fuse with white, and then white will search for Alphan similarly. This also puts level 5 body on board in Seraphinite that will let you make a rank 5. So you can summon Vinmara if you open with this plus a starter. So that's another nice thing that this can do. And I don't think this is bad, but in retrospect, I think I would cut it just because, just to make the consistency a little bit higher. And then we've got 3 Eva, 3 orange, and 3 green. This is kind of obvious in this format. There's so much stuff that you want to be able to stop with hand traps, and hand traps are a ton of points, and these are at least affordable, being 5, 3, and 1, which is worth your bang for your buck. And it's especially good in here because if you open with one of them plus white, you can discard it to search Alfan to get to a starter, essentially. And then the last monster in the deck, I have 3 Nibiru. This deck is very good at going first. If your opponent doesn't have any hand traps and you go first, then you win almost every game. So you're mostly worried about going second. So I'm spending a lot of points on Nibiru because of that, basically. And then the spells, we've got the 3 layer 19, and then the 1 field spell, and the 1 spike. It's pretty obvious. And then 3 Vingolf's Blessing, which is really good in here. You can use it to send, if you don't have a starter, you send white to search for Alfan. And then if you do, you wait until you have some fairies in your grave, and then you send Eva and search for orange and green light. So it's really good. You can also send Nibiru if you have that. And Nibiru can then discard a card to summon itself and search for dispersion. Which is good if you have like a white in hand. You can discard the white to do that. Or if you have a black in hand that you want to discard to summon to the Nibiru. That's another good reason to run the Nibiru. Then we have the 1 dispersion, and then I am playing the trap just because I was worried about potentially going into time. Sometimes people can stall. Depending on the deck, they can stall and try to go into time when you have your Magnus, but it didn't really come up. There's only 1 game where I even got close to going into time, and I think as long as you play with a good pace, you can cut this and not worry about it. Because this card is garbage, obviously. It's but I just included it just to try to get a little bit of an extra push when you're going for a game. And then extra deck for the Quantums, I've got 2 Grand Pulse, 1 Ouroboros. I played 3 Magna Liger, 3 Luster X. Shout out to Eric for letting me borrow 1. And then, and also shout out to Rat for helping coordinate that. And then 1 Magnus. So, I am playing a very heavily slanted towards the Quantums build. I don't really summon anything else from my extra deck besides these. It's very rare to summon anything else. I almost never do. So I am playing 3 and 3 of this because I just summon them so much more than anything else that it comes up sometimes where I want the 3rd one for both of those. Ouroboros is so much weaker than the other ones that I don't really want to summon it unless I have to as part of my combo to get up to here. If I have either a green on board or white that copied green, I just need to have it. And then the Grand Pulse is good in some situations, certain decks that play spells and traps you want to destroy, but it's not as great, so that's why only 2 for that. So those are the main guys you actually summon, and then other than that, there's Seraphonite, which you summon if you have the Gem Knight play, which came up a few times in the tournament. Exiton, which I never summoned, but sometimes is good if you're going second to blow up the board. Vimana never came up during the tournament, but sometimes good going first. You can summon it with you can summon that plus Magnus in hands if you have the Gem Knight play plus a good enough hand besides that. And then one Utopic Ray Lancer, which I summoned once, and one Gaia Dragon, which I never summoned. And these are just because when you revive the Exceeds from the grave, they come back without materials and they can't attack. So this is just a way to get some attacks in. And these ones I would not cut. I actually wanted to add another one of that type. I chose not to play any of the other Exceeds that people normally run, like the Armor Exceed package, for example. I just did not see a situation where I would want to summon one of those instead of just going for Magnus. So it didn't seem worth it to play that. The cards like Zeus and the F-Zero, I would play them if they were less points, but I'm not going to spend 20 points on Zeus and 5 points on the other for something I would rarely summon. I would summon them occasionally, though. So if they were cheaper, I would play them, but I'm not going to dedicate some points to that. Side deck, got a purple, just one because it's searchable. It never came up. And then 3 Kaijus. I don't think those came up. 2 Swords of Concealing Light. Those were helpful, I would say. 3 Spellbook, which never really helped. 3 Cosmic didn't really help. And then 3 Evenly, which I think was fine. Yeah. And then changes I would make to the deck. So in retrospect, so this is a 43 card deck because I couldn't decide what to cut beforehand. But in retrospect, I would cut this card for sure. That was a waste of space. And then I would also cut the Gem Knight package. I think it's fair to keep this in, but it was a little too bricky for my liking. So this gets you down to 48, or 38, I mean. And so I personally, I think I would add 2 Minimalian in just to fill the space. I know most people do play the Minimalian, and it's nice for a little bit of extra consistency, but in my testing, even without the Minimalian, I was at like high 90s for % Magnus if my opponent doesn't have interruptions. So I didn't think I needed it, but in retrospect, I think maybe it helps play through some interruptions depending on what the interruption is, and it's just a little bit of extra consistency, so I think I'm going to add it back in. And the reason I cut it before is because I felt like I didn't need it, and so if I didn't need it, I might as well not take the -1 off the Minimalian. And I was already over 40 anyways. But now that I need something to fill the space, this is a decent filler card, essentially, in my opinion. And then also, in the extra decks, a couple other changes I would make. I would add a Dragon Gate and a Big Eye. Big Eye never actually came up in the tournament where I wanted it, but I still think it's useful. And then the Dragon Gate did come up where I did want to summon one, but it's not a huge deal. Obviously, you'd cut the Seraphonite because you're cutting the Gem Knights. And then the other cut is debatable. I think I would probably cut a Magna Liger. But, yeah. The third Magna Liger, the third Lustervex, they're rarely going to come up. These two are rarely going to come up. These are also rarely going to come up. And these are also going to rarely come up. But you just have them just in case, because all of them do sometimes. You do want them sometimes. So all you need to go full combo, essentially, is a bunch of different 1-card starters and then a few 2-card starters. So Elfan, Zayton, Blue, Ingolf's Blessing, and if you're playing it, Minimalian. All of these are 1-card starters where you can go full combo with just the card. Most of them you'll need other cards to go with them. It can be basically any cards, like to discard for the field spell, for example. but yeah, it can be like hand traps or whatever. That's also good for stopping your opponent. But to actually like start your combo and go through the whole thing and make Megazord, you just need one of these. And essentially, these are all just different ways to get to Alfan, which is the main card that does everything in the deck, because you get to pick 3 and summon 1, send 2 to grave to get 3 effects essentially, and that just starts everything. This one, if you have something else, you can special it and then tribute it and get Alfan. If you don't have anything else, you can just normal summon this and then tribute this to get Alfan. Blue obviously can search Zayton. So if you have to normal summon blue, you normal summon it, search Zayton, special, tribute to get Alfan. So that's how you get to Alfan. Bengal, obviously you dump white, just get Alfan, normal summon it. Minimalian, obviously you summon this, summon blue. Blue searches Alfan, and you can normal summon because Minimalian was a special summon. So those are all the 1-card starters. And then in addition to that, we have a bunch of 2-card starters. So Eva, Layer 19, white, and black are all 2-card starters essentially. And they need something else to go with them in order to start your combo. So you can break with these if you don't have the right combination. But Eva just needs a way to send it to the grave with a fairy that you can banish, and then you can search Alfan. Usually that is going to be your orange Herald and your green Herald, and it's an excellent way to search a starter. If you're going second, you can just pitch this to stop one of your opponent's plays and then search your Alfan. If you're playing the Gem Knight engine, you can fuse with this and then get a search for an Alfan. You can also send this directly to the grave with Vingolf's Blessing potentially, or just discard it for the field spell if you even get to that point. This, you would just need a Quantum on board to be able to activate it. So if you have a bad hand, this can be a starter if you just have red or green and you activate this and then go off. This, all you need is any other light super quant monster, and you just send it to the grave to special summon this. This sends another white from the deck to the grave. That will search an Alfan, and then you normal summon the Alfan. So those are pretty simple. And then black, you just need a way to basically to get it to the grave. So if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can trigger this effect to discard a card, special summon this, and then you would make usually a white or a Luster Rex, I should say, so you can detach this to just negate something and search the spell. Also, if you can discard this in some other way to the graveyard, just to get the search. So yeah, so these are not 1-card starters, but they're also potentially starters. So the deck has a ton of ways it can get its plays going, so it's actually really consistent. So in the tournament itself, I ended up going 4-4. I played against Shadal, Mimighoul, Archmage, Blitzcleek, Fairy Tale, Sharks, Hecahand Chimera, and then some other Hecahand deck. That last one I didn't see very much of. So it might have been some of combo deck, but the only card they played was a Hecahand. So round 1, I ended up playing against Shadal's. Game 1, I lost the roll, so I had to go second. They had Brick Hand, so they did not play any cards. They did have a DD Crow and a Skullmeister, but he didn't really know what to hit on my deck as I went for my combo, so he couldn't stop me, and I would have had Magnus, but he scooped before I got to that point. Game 2, he went first again, and set up, there was a fusion monster that has a quick effect with some flip thing, and then he had 2 sets, one of which was a super poly. Activated the swords that I sided in to turn off his monster effect, and then went for my play. He ended up using Super Poly to take out one of my X-Seeds, but I was able to summon 4 that turn, so I had 3 left, and I just summoned Megazord, and I won because I had Megazord again. Round 2, I played against Mimighoul. I lost the die roll, so I had to go second. Game 1, I used my orange lights to kill. He made a Mimighoul rank 1, and I destroyed it with orange. And then on my turn, he had a Book of Eclipse, which stopped my combo. I would have had Megazord otherwise. But apparently he had no follow-up plays because he scooped on his next turn. Game 2, I have a Nibiru going second, but I I messed up. I didn't realize Nibiru cannot tribute set monsters, so I tributed it at an inopportune time and didn't kill all the monsters I was planning on killing, and so I ended up losing that game, going second. And then game 3, I got to go first, and he had no hand traps, so I just went off. I summoned 7 material Magnus, backed up with a 2 material Magna Liger and a Nibiru in my hand, and he can't out it, so I just win. Oh yeah, that's another thing about Nibiru. In this deck, you can like leave Nibiru in going first, just summon Magnus, and then you can Nibiru with Magnus on the board because he's unaffected by it, so it doesn't matter that you're tributing all your stuff. So that's pretty nice, pretty effective way to use that card in my opinion. Round 3, I played against Archmage player. I won the die roll, so I got to go first. I had full combo, but I actually messed up the play. I forgot to summon Zayton. It's a pretty silly mistake. So I didn't have access to Spike, so I didn't have access to this field spell. But it didn't matter because he had Fua on that play, and I was playing through it. But then he drew into a Kaiju off of the Fua that he used on my board. I didn't have Megazord, but I did have stuff, so he Kaiju'd it. So it didn't matter, but I should have had Megazord that game. So that would have been actually the only time all tournament where it got Kaiju'd, if I had actually summoned it. Game 2, I went first again, and I summoned 7 material Magnus, and he scooped. And then game 3. He went first and had a big board. I had evenly matched, but he had an Omni on board, and I didn't have any other breakers besides that, so he was able to negate my evenly matched. And then I tried to play through his board after I had the negate forced out, but he had a bunch of other interruptions too, so he was able to stop my plays, so I couldn't go off. Round 4 was Blitzkrieg. So game 1, he has Fuwilos. I just play through it. He draws into a Crackle off of that, or he already had it, one or the other. But I had an orange light this hand, so I was able to negate that. So I was able to make a 7 material Magnus, and he doesn't scoop immediately, but he can't out the Magnus, so I eventually just whittle him down to nothing. After the match, he revealed he had a Lava Golem in game 1 that he wasn't able to summon because I only summoned Magnus. In this matchup, so he played Crackle, so I knew it was Blitzkrieg. Against Blitzkrieg, you only ever summon Magnus and just leave the rest of your board empty because then they can't destroy anything. So I'm never going to play into Lava Golem in that matchup, basically. Game 2, he chooses to go first. He said that he was a blind second build, but in this matchup, he chose to go first. So that makes sense. But I had a green and I used that to negate his search spell, and then he does not have a starting play after that. But I have like the worst brick hand I've ever seen, so I also don't have a starting play, and we end up passing back and forth several times until he finally draws a way to start, and then he kills me. So this is like the most ridiculous hand of all time. I ended up with 2 Cosmic Cyclones, the Field Spell, green, orange, red, Nibirum, and Dispersion. And that was my hand. So, there's nothing I can do, especially against Blitzcrank. Against a normal deck, I can make a Magnaliger, but that's just a liability against Blitzcrank. It gives them something to destroy. So, I went 4 draws, 9 cards deep into my deck without seeing a way to play, which is utterly ridiculous for this deck and with how consistent it is. Yeah, this was the match where I was like, I need to cut these cards. This is not working. And then game 3, I get to go first, but he has Fuelos again, and off of his Fuelos, he draws into a hand trap, which he uses to at the correct time to stop my play. So I can't get to Magnus through the hand trap, and without Magnus, he beats me going second. So round 5, I play against Fairy Tale. I lost the die roll, so I do have Nibiru though going second. So I am able to Nibiru their board and leave it as something that I could play through with a stronger hand, but I didn't have any starters in my hand, so I ended up scooping to not reveal my strategy, essentially. And then game 2, I go first, and unfortunately, they know the matchup, so they have a Ghost Ogre, and they use it on the field spell, which was the correct timing to stop me from getting to Magnus. So I end up I'm still on a strong board. I have a Lusterex with 2 materials and a Grand Pulse with 2 materials with a Spellbound set and a number 19 set. But then he activates Kaiju Slumber, which clears out the Lusterex and the Grand Pulse, and then the Layer 19 is useless because you can't summon from the deck with it unless you have Quantum on board. So it leaves me with just Spellbound, and that's not enough by itself. Round 6, I played against Sharks. So game 1, I won the roll, went first, and he had a DD Crow and a Ghost Ogre, but he didn't know the opportune times to activate them, so I played through them, and I summoned a 7 material Magnus. If you do know the timings, a Crow plus an Ogre is enough to stop this deck, in my opinion. And then game 2, I go second, and he does a bunch of crazy shark things that I barely even remember. I had never seen the cards before, but he ends up winning game 2. Game 3 is pretty back and forth, so I do open Magnus going first. He doesn't have a hand trap for it, but he has Exceed Encore, so this is the only time in the entire tournament where my Magnus was outed. But luckily, I still have a ton of cards when I get outed by Encore, because I have so many trigger effects when all my cards go to the grave, and then I get a bunch of Exceeds and such summoned back. I forgot which one. He summoned like the Exceeds back, and because they didn't have effects without materials. So that was what he opted to do with the Encore. But I used one of them for Lancer, and I ended up summoning Lancer plus Lusterex with an Orange Herald in my hand as backup. And I end up pushing through his board, and then we're almost in time, and he ends up scooping right before going into time. It was his turn, so I would have been able to push through enough damage before time, but I think I had a slightly stronger position than him, and he did scoop before going into time to avoid the double loss. So I do that one was the only time I got close to going into time. And then round 7, I played against Hekahan Chimera. Game 1, I lost the roll, and they open up with a strong board that I don't have enough to play through. Game 2, I go first, and I open ridiculous board. Pretty much, I summoned, I forgot how many materials, 7 or 8 material Magnus, plus 2 material Lustervex, plus an active orange in hand. But he has a kind of a ridiculous amount of plays he can do with Magnus up on the board, just sending cards from the deck to the grave and summoning cards from the deck. A lot of ways to search, essentially, without adding from deck to hand. And so he makes a giant board of monsters. And I don't read the cards well enough. One of them lets the other guys attack directly. So I let him go into battle phase, and then I lose, despite being able to shuffle them back into deck. So I probably shouldn't have lost that one, but I did. And then round 8, played against Heckhands again. I won the die roll. This match I won in like 5 minutes. So game 1, I went first. He had no hand traps. I summoned 7 material Megazord, plus a 2 material Lustervex, plus I had an orange and a green and an Eva in hand. And so he scooped going into that without revealing his deck. Game 2, he opens with an exchange to try to get rid of my hand traps. So I use green plus Eva to negate the exchange. And then I search orange off of that. And then he activates one of his Hekahan cards, one that summons from the deck, I believe. And then I use orange plus white to negate that one, and then he scoops. So I had like the perfect counter. So that one I did feel a little bad. I did feel a little bit bad about that game, about beating it so quickly, I guess. So yeah, that was my match, all my matches. Ended up having a good time. I do like Genesis. I wish decks were probably a little bit weaker going first. It seems I'm not the biggest fan of current Yu-Gi-Oh! With Advanced, and it is kind of similar to it, I'm gonna be honest. But I do like playing with my Quantums again. And as a bonus for anyone who's interested, I did, after the tournament on Sunday, I entered a Chronicles Structure Deck Tournament side event, and I won. So as a bonus, I'm going to do a quick deck profile on that. For anyone who's interested, if you're only interested in the Quantum stuff, then feel free to stop watching. But I wanted to go through the deck that I won with. I really like the Structure Deck side events. At this point, this is my 3rd win. I think I've entered 5, maybe. I think I'm 3 for 5, 3 wins out of 5 attempts. So I'm doing very well on those. So this is the Charmers deck, and it is there are some really nuts cards in here that are completely unbalanced for the format. But so the night before, I went through and read every card in the deck, so I actually knew what the cards did, which was more than my opponents did. So I was at a big advantage because of that. So first of all, you've got the Charmers, which their effects are kind of situational. Some people did actually resolve them in some of my matches. I didn't even try to resolve their effects personally. I only ever use these as fodder, either for links or fusions. They're spellcasters that you can normal summon, so they're good in that sense in this deck. And then you got each of the familiar possess. These ones are slightly better because they have higher attack, and they have 1850 attack, which means Luna can search them. These ones are also basically just fodder. You just use them as link material and fusion material. And again, you can normal summon them, so they're pretty good. And then we have the Channelers. And these ones are level 5, and so they're bad because you can't just normal summon them. So normally what I did was I just searched all of these and then used them immediately as fusion material from my hand. Because so these would be better than some of these other ones in like a real deck, but in this deck, it's really hard to actually use them. There's just you have to have the attributes line up exactly right to actually use them, so they're really not very good. And then next we have the familiars, the Nari Fire, Gigabyte, Nefarious Archfiend, and then the Ranryu. And these are nice because you can just special summon them easily, and they are good for helping your Link plays because of that. And then the Awakened familiars. You got all 4 of those, and these are pretty cool because they just summon from the deck. And their effects are all right. So yeah, these guys are all okay. They're not nothing special, but they're not bad. The bad part is when you draw them, but and then the most broken card in the entire deck, Imseti. If you draw Imseti, you win. In my matches, nobody ever lost after they drew this because you just search for the King Sarcophagus and then dump all the other Horus monsters, and then you win because there's no counter. This deck does not have a counter to these except for if the other person also summons the Horus monsters. That's really the only counter. These 3 all suck by themselves. They don't do anything unless you have the combo. So they're bricks basically. But you need to run them to play the best card in the deck. So it is worth it in that sense. And then you have Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, which is broken because it searches for Grand Circle, which is the second best card in the deck after Imseti / the Sarcophagus card. And Fairy Tale Luna, which is probably the 3rd best card in the deck because it will search for extra spellcaster monsters basically infinitely. You just summon it, get a free search, and then you can bounce something. There's only 1 copy of every card in this deck, so your opponent can never send to stop the effect, so it'll always resolve. You can out extra deck monsters with this pretty freely. And then 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This is kind of awkward to actually resolve the effect of because there are not very many traps in this deck. The only time I drew it, I was not able to even use it because I didn't have any traps to resolve its effect. Well, you can summon it easily because you have spells, but actually getting the search is difficult, which is what you want to do in theory because the best cards in the deck are spells. So then we have Grand Spiritual Art of Chirin, the kind of a floodgate. It's pretty solid, but you can play around it pretty effectively. But yeah, the effect of search for the familiars is there too, but that's not that crazy. It's mostly good because it's a floodgate. And Awakening the Possessed gives you attack boost, which helps because your opponent's monsters are the same attack as yours. And then it also gives you free advantage by drawing, which is just a solid card. But this is better for like grind games, and a lot of the games in this deck are blowouts. So both of these are kind of like grind game cards, and so they're not as strong because of that. Because most of the games in this format do not last very long. Spirit Charmers, this is good for, you would just search for 2 spell and traps, to be honest. You have so many useless monsters, you're not going to use this as a search for a monster. And then second best card in the deck, the Spellbook of the Grand Circle. This card is nuts. You just search for 4. I searched for the Channelers because that way I could get rid of them so I didn't have to draw them. So you just search for 1 of each. And then use this from the grave to fuse either of the two fusions. They're both ridiculous in this deck. If you had this plus the magicalized fusion, then you can summon both in the same turn and just blow out your opponent. But yeah, this is the second best card in the deck. Spellbook of Secrets is great because you search for this. Spellbook of Knowledge is not great. You want to be searching the Grand Circle when you're searching with either Blue Boy or Secrets. So you're not going to be searching this. If you do draw it, you're not normally going to have a spell book to discard with this to draw 2. So you're going to have to send a spellcaster that you control to the grave to draw 2, which maybe that's good sometimes. If you just have like a charmer as just the body, and you can just send it to draw 2. But generally not the best card in here. King's Sarcophagus, which is tied for the best card in the deck with Imseti because they're the same thing. If you draw this, you just summon all 4 of the things and you win. Magicalized Fusion is really strong because both of the 2 fusions are really strong in here. Dark Ruler No More could be good situationally. You can maybe use it to out a Horus board. It never actually came up in any of my games for either player. Sol and Luna, notable because it's one of the only traps in the deck, essentially. And it's okay in that sense, but it's basically just a worse Book of Moon because you also have to book your own thing. In theory, I think it's supposed to be setting your Charmer to activate the effect again, but who's using the Charmer's flip effects? Next, one of the better cards in the deck, Possessed Partnerships, is essentially the only real trap in the deck. It can blow up a card, and that's just actually really good. This is definitely one of the best cards in the deck, and one of the only things you have to play around when your opponent has set cards. Unpossessed, which is okay, but again with some of those other cards, stronger in a grind game, which this deck doesn't really do much of. And then Angel Statue is Azrune. Basically, they're just for Silhouette Rabbit. It's not really that good. It doesn't stop effects that summon, so it's really easy to play around. And also, its stat is 1800 attack and defense, which is smaller than the monsters. They're all 1850, so it's just you can just attack over this. It's not very good. And then the links. So we've got one of each of the Charmer links, and they're all solid. You just summon one from your opponent's grave, and then go up into a link 3. That's mainly what you would use those for. And then Silhouette Rabbit, which is like the only spell trap removal besides cards that just destroy anything generically. So it's okay for that. And then Celine, help to link climb. You just go from 2 to 3 in Celine, and then 3 to 4 in Access Code. And Access Code, one of the best cards in here probably. I think the 2 fusions are both stronger than this in this specific format in this deck, but Access Code is still really good. And then the 2 fusions, so we've got Charmers of the Grand Circle, which is busted, and you can just like OTK your opponent basically with this and this especially. This just nukes your opponent's board. This can nuke your opponent's board and add cards to your deck to hand and special summon cards in the grave. And those are both big blowout cards. And then the last one is the Zombie Vampire, which you can summon with the Horus monsters, but I'd rather just have the Horus monsters. So yeah, it's not really the best fit in here. And then my side deck, so when we opened up our structure decks, there's a bonus card in each. The judge said that you could choose to either play it or not, so I chose not to play the brick card and just put it in my side deck. So a lot of people chose to throw these into their deck, but this is basically a vanilla. I don't know why you would choose to play that. But yeah, so I won all 3 rounds. It's pretty fun. I drew decent number of Imsetis and a decent number of. So basically, if you draw like this, or this, or if you draw this, or this, or this, then you can just win. Even this, sometimes, depending on the hand, you could just go for game, and there's not very much stopping that in this deck specifically. There's not very many traps. Yeah, it was a pretty fun event. I do like those side events. I wish more people would play them. Hopefully, you enjoyed watching my deck profile for my Super Quantums, and then my bonus Spirit Charmers deck profile. We'll see if I end up posting any other things. It's weird to be posting again on YouTube, I will say.